Hello everyone, this is Mukundan Raghavan, and this series we are going to discuss on Appium for beginners. For the beginners, Appium is the web automation framework, and whenever we start some new framework, it's very easy to start. However, Appium for mobile automation is little different. Before starting the Appium, we should understand how it is totally different from the web automation. So this video, we will try to understand what are the essential terms that we should understand before starting the Appium itself. And these essential terms are very much required even you use Appium or any tool in the future. These terms are very much to be understood before starting the mobile testing. What are those? Let's discuss in a very simple way. The first and foremost one, we are going to discuss how mobile device is different from the web application. And if you are not aware of client server architecture, we will simply touch upon the client server architecture. And we are going to discuss what is Android Studio, why and how it helps developer as well as the tester. What is SDK, why it is required. What is ADB and why it is required. What is simulator and emulator and how it is different from the real mobile device. And we are going to explain in a very simple way about the WebDriver protocol and decide capabilities and how it works in the mobile testing. What is driver in mobile testing using Appium and where it comes in the whole picture. What is APK file and what are the main properties in it. Finally, how Appium connects all this and why Appium is so popular as soon as you look for the mobile automation testing. Let's go each and everything in a simple way so that this will create a good base to understand mobile testing. The first one, how mobile device is different from web application. Needless to say, each one of us will be using the mobile device. However, when it comes to the automation, mobile devices has the specific or different characteristics, such as it will be touch based. That means you can just touch base your screen, tapping, swiping, pinching, maybe scroll down, scroll up, gestures, face recognition, lot and lot of things happens when compared to the normal web application. And screen size, obviously, it varies from device to device and browser to browser. And resolution also changes from device to device. Native features. For example, in mobiles, we have some native applications. Instance, you can consider your camera, your notepad, or maybe calendar, or maybe video recorder. These are the things comes by default with your mobile device, and these are called native applications. This will have the direct connection or direct access to your camera, accelerometer, maybe sometimes your heartbeats, or maybe sometimes your sensors. So whatever you have in device, these applications will be having the direct access. Whereas if you install some other application in your mobile, we need to explicitly give the permission to that. The same way, if you think about the browser is very simple. You have the browser, you put the URL, you go to the application. Maybe rare cases you will give the permissions for camera, maybe for the mic. And other places you will be giving the access to your maybe cookies or maybe your other accessories, something like that, your headset or Bluetooth and so on. Now coming to the installation and distribution, as we discussed, this mobile application maximum times comes from the Google Play Store or Apple Play Store or Apple App Store. Even though you can see some applications called progressive web apps, but however it is rare case and we will take it in the advanced part. In simple words, this will be installed by using the Google Play Store if you are the Android user, or it will be installed from Apple App Store if you are the Mac user. Now, trying to cover basic thing, client server architecture. We have the internet, we have the different clients. Clients are very simple. It is the end user device. In web automation, it's straightforward. We will be using the computer or laptop and we will be using the browser. But in case of other devices such as a smartphone, tablet, it also will be considered as a client. At the end of the day, we are connecting to the internet, we are connecting to the another server at the other end. And this server will be having some information, some data to us. It will come to our device. Then server, as we discussed in a simple way, again, the formal definition has been given here. But when you try to communicate through the internet, we need to follow some protocols. Obviously, by this time, you definitely might be known about HTTP protocol and HTTPS protocol, TCP/IP protocol. These protocols will play a major role in case of if you are using the mobile testing as well. And decentralized logic, which means sometimes even before reaching the server, we will do some validation on the client side itself. Here, client, what I mean is the device or the browser. In server side, we will do other validations, maybe authentication, authorization, data quality, data integrity, and data formatting. Everything can be done on the server side. This also plays a major role in case when we have the interaction by using the client server architecture. Now coming to the Android Studio. If you are seeing for the first time Android Studio is the place, or it is the IDE, integrated development environment, where it will provide all the tools, debugging tools, testing tools, and emulator simulators, everything which are required for to develop the Android web application. Sorry, develop the Android mobile application. The main good part is it will have everything for Android. And challenging part is this Android Studio, as the name suggests, it is only for the Android application, not for the Mac applications, or not for the application which can be used in the iPhone. For developers, it's straightforward. They can use this to write the code, maybe in Java or Kotlin, to create the Android apps and to test it. Same way for the web application, they will write a code in the different languages. However, it is very easy to test it in the browsers because everyone will have some browser. But when it comes to the mobile testing, we need to have the different devices, different screen sizes, different other conditions. For example, network availability, 2G, 3G. Like this, there are a lot of parameters will play a major role in mobile testing. So that this emulator simulators or this entire integrated environment will give you all the powers and all the tools. And obviously, it has large community so that we can see all the documentation, all the existing queries, and we can get the assistance from the different teams. Now, the integral part of this IDE can be considered software development kit. If you are from the member from the Java community, definitely you might have heard about the JDK, Java Development Kit. The same way here, it is a software development kit. Again, it provides all the required things, tools, libraries, documentation, sample code for the mobile app development. In simple word, SDK stands for Software Development Kit. For example, when you want to develop something, you will be having the different simulator emulators that we discussed. So those things can be for a different things. For example, iOS SDK includes Xcode IDE, iOS simulator, UI kit framework. In case of Android, you have the UA automator too, and lot of things. These components may vary from the OS, maybe Android or maybe iOS, so based on Windows. So these components might vary, but in nutshell, you need these components, you need this SDK to develop something. And maximum times in the starting days, we will be looking into the Android SDK, which is Android Software Development Kit, so that we will have a good grip about Android SDK. Now coming to the ADB, since we already discussed ADB, or already we discussed we are going to go with maximum times Android in the starting days. We are going to use the ADB. ADB stands for Android Debug Bridge. So this is a command line tool, same like any other tool in your system. For example, you might use the Java, you might use the Python, you might use the Node.js. So probably you might have used some terminal commands, npm install or Java execution commands or Maven commands, any build tools, any application will have the command line tool. Same here for Android, we have the ADB. By using the ADB, you can do a lot of things from your terminal itself. And sometimes it's very easy and very convenient to do the things through the terminal so that you can do a lot of things in a single shot. And when you test it or when you develop it, you need to actually connect to the device instead of connecting to the browser because your application has been developed for targeting any kind of device. So in order to connect to the device or any simulated or emulated device, you need to connect through either USB or Wi-Fi. After connecting to the device, then you will install your application. For Android, the extension will be .apk. This file has to be installed in your mobile device or simulated device. Then you can test it in the device. Same like you need to have your application open in the browser, then only you can test it. But here we need to install that application. So for that reason, we can use the ADB commands. Now the actual thing, simulator and emulator. People initially think simulator and emulator can be used interchangeably. However, it has a slight difference. Since already we discussed about the Android Studio, this Android Studio comes with lot and lot of devices. However, if you have the different devices, you need to download that. By default, there might be one or two tools or one or two devices may be available. But in case if you want to go for the wide range of devices, you need to download that. And here you can see these are some example screenshots. that you can see some devices, for example, Nexus 4 or Nexus 6. Then what is the main difference between simulator and emulator? Simulator is a simple software program which may mimic the behavior of the real device, but it's not actual device. Basically, it will not mimic the hardware characteristic. Whereas emulator will be exactly mimicking the software environment as well as the hardware, so that you will have more realistic target device. However, since it is emulating all the things, including the hardware characteristics, it may have more consumption of places, memory, and maybe the processing time. But at the end of the day, we need to have the good quality and the good target environment, so that maximum times we will try to use the emulator. Even simulation you can do from your browser itself. In the browser itself, you can find some kind of mobile device icon. You can see how it will be looking like a mobile. However, it is not actually representing the hardware characteristic. So we can see a lot of things, for example, Android virtual device and Xcode iOS simulator. So a lot of things we are going to see, but in simple words, we will be using simulator and emulator when and where it is required. Now coming to the main one, WebDriver protocol or JSON wire protocol. If you are from the Selenium background, it might be something like a refreshing one. Or if you are totally new to this one, it's very easy. Try to understand. We may write our code to interact with mobile application. In simple words, we need to automate very higher level. When you try to automate these things, you either go with any one of the languages, maybe Java, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, C Sharp, PHP, or Objective-C, anything. But to be pragmatic, we either use Java or JavaScript maximum times, maybe sometimes Python. So when you use these languages will have some set of commands. When you just run this client or the code, this will be converted into the JSON. This JSON communication will be happening to the Appium server by using the HTTP protocol. Basically, you are making the HTTP calls with some set of payloads which is in JSON format. You may write in any language, but at the end of the day, you will be just sending this as a request to HTTP protocol by using some JSON object. Now, Appium server is the man in middle, or which is acting like a centerpiece, and it will get all the requests and it will send this to the drivers. Now you might ask a question, why do we need Appium drivers again? We can directly connect it to the devices. So that's where the difference between the web application and the mobile devices comes. Unlike the browser testing or the web application, here we have variety of devices, variety of iOS, variety of maybe Android devices. What I'm telling is like even inside the Android, you have the different versions. Even inside the mobile device, you have the different vendors. Even inside the vendors, you have the different screen sizes, different resolution, different maybe the response time, a different bandwidth. So all these things has to be handled. For each vendor, they create their own driver files. By using these driver files, we can connect to the respective simulators, emulators, or real devices. These drivers are specific to the device. So obviously Appium server cannot directly connect to the device. It has to go through the drivers. Based on the device, based on the OS, we will be having the different Appium drivers. What are those Appium drivers? Definitely we need to see in the future. But this is the overall structure. In this diagram, we need to understand we might write any code, but the end it will be given as a HTTP call with some set of JSON payload. This payload will be given to the Appium server, which in turn calls the drivers, and these drivers will do the actual actions on the devices. Now let's go to the next one. I think this theory part you can go through it again, but this is what we want to understand. Now desired capabilities. When you try to connect to the server, you will tell what is your desired capabilities. Basically, you want to tell how the device looks like, what is the device name, what is the platform name, whether it is a Windows, iOS, or Android. Even if you go for Android, what is the version? And even if you go for the Android devices, what is the device name? For example, it can be maybe Samsung, it can be maybe from the different vendors. So you need to tell these things. And if you mention these things, where do we find our application? These are platform related, but you want to install that application, right? You want to work with that application which you developed or which you are testing. So that's where you will be mentioning the path where you can find your APK file. It is similar to your exe file. It will be used to install your application in the given device. And a lot of other things will be coming into picture. So based on the scenario, you will be testing all these things. When you write the code, you will be giving this again from the code itself. Now coming to the driver. So driver already we have discussed. Again, there are some extra information about this driver. So how do you initialize your driver? What are the things you will be giving? and how it works in the real time, some example code snippets. So that we already have discussed. So let's skip to the next one. APK file. APK file, again, it is Android package file, which is used to distribute and install the application from Android devices. If you are going for the iOS, it is totally different. It will be IPA. However, we will go with APK as of now. So APK is a simple file extension for the Android package. And some properties we should be noticing: package name, version code, version name, permissions, activities, dependencies. These are the some things we need to think about when you go for the APK file. And probably if you are going to the browser, sometimes there will be some suspicious sites which will give the download with the .apk file, which means that they are trying to install some application in your mobile. So if you're already working on mobile, needless to say, this APK file, but still it's good to know we are using the APK files in mobile testing, especially for the Android. Now, these APK files can be used in real devices or emulators. Both the ways we need to use it. Now, finally, we have come to the Appium. Now we have seen what are the different terms, what are the different devices, what are the different simulation, emulation, what are the drivers we need, how the protocol works, everything. Now, Appium is the unified automation which can support maximum all of these things. It supports all the devices, all the OS, especially iOS and Android. It supports all the drivers. It supports multiple languages. For example, your team might be working on Java or JavaScript or Python. You can start writing your code by using any one of this client. And Appium was there for a long time. So obviously you will have large amount of community and large amount of documentation and support. Since Appium and Selenium are like using more or like a same kind of protocol, you can just transfer your knowledge if you have already worked on the Selenium automation. And obviously it is following the WebDriver protocol and it has some standards so that you can expect some consistency in your applications, in your coding, in your libraries. Then other parts could be the again the same steps. It is being used Java, Python, JavaScript, maximum things. But again, you can go with other languages. But in this series, we are going to majorly focus for the Java in the starting time, because even this Appium was developed, or let's say mainly focusing on the Java side, so that we will start with Java. But as you grow, it does not matter which language you use it. It can be a Java or JavaScript, but at the end of the day, it is just one integral part of this mobile testing. We need to consider a lot and lot of things. Unlike web application testing, you will be knowing a lot of other things. For example, even though you use the Java, you might need to install the Node.js, because this Appium server in middle, whatever you have seen here, this server has been written in Node.js. So now here you will be having the technical stack rather than attaching yourself to the single language or let's say single tool. And you will come across lot and lot of other terminologies as we progress. So with these basic terms, we are good to start our mobile testing. Probably in next video or next sessions, we will try to install the necessary things and we will start writing our first code to see how the Appium testing works. Hopefully this explained the basic terms. Let's go to the outro part. And what are the things we have seen? Let's again recap how mobile devices different from the web application, such as like a touch functionalities, devices, screen size, resolutions, and different kinds of installation is required, and what is client server architecture. And we have seen Android Studio, why and how it helps the developer and tester to have the different simulation and emulation of devices. What is SDK, what is ADB, which is a CLI tool for Android device debug, and simulator emulator already we discussed, and how it is different from the device, and how simulator and emulator can differentiate themselves when compared to other. And we have seen the WebDriver protocol overall picture, in that we have seen on your left hand side your client, middle will be your maybe Node.js server or Appium server. In middle again you have seen the driver files, then driver files will interact with the actual simulation device or the real device. And decide capabilities is something like we need to mention when we code it. And driver already we discussed, an APK file, especially for the Android devices. And we have the IPA file for maybe Mac, but still we will start with the APK files. And we need to install this in the device where we want to test it. And finally, we have seen this all things can be supported, and community and cross browser support, or maybe native app, mobile app, or hybrid apps, or maybe with iOS, Mac. So you name it anything, you name any language, this all can be supported and available in the Appium. So that's the reason we will start with Appium with Java. So this is all about this video. I hope This clears the basic understanding about the mobile testing using the Appium and always be a rainbow in others' cloud.